Bum 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 bum.
Tomatoes?
Hello, welcome to video 4. What is Game User Settings, the Apply Resolution Settings node? Let's run through the node itself first and notice the differences before we actually run the example. So the Apply Resolution Settings node, which is this node here, is intended to only apply the resolution changes that have been made to your Game User Settings object, and only those. Now the resolution settings are the resolution itself. So if we were to go over here and we look here and we run the set screen resolution node, that is a change that will be made. But it also affects the full screen mode changes. And I'll show you those shortly. So like the other game user setting nodes, we're going to have to pull it off of the get game user settings node because it needs a target of a game user settings. And it has a boolean which we'll cover shortly on what it does. There are 3 total apply settings nodes. We have the generic apply settings, which applies everything and saves. And then we have our apply resolution and non-resolution nodes, which apply their appropriate options, but do not save. So that's something to keep in mind. Generally, you'd use this for something like allowing the player to change the resolution settings, either full screen, windowed, borderless, or the resolution itself. And then after they've changed it, you prompt them. Can you see the screen? Do you wish to accept these settings? And then you fail safe out after 5 or 10 seconds and go back to the last saved resolution as a safety mechanism. Because of that, after you've applied and you've made sure that the player has good settings, you're going to go ahead and want to hook up a save settings node somewhere else to actually save those settings to disk after you've changed them. So keep that in mind. The apply resolution node does not save to disk after you've applied it. Let's go ahead and look at this in our example. So when I run this, we're going to get our normal menu screen, and I can change a few options. So let's say I changed, let's pull the FPS since I clicked on that. And we'll look and we see our 60 FPS. Let's say I was to go to 120 and hit apply. Well, it's still going to stay locked at 60, even unlimited. Frame rate limit, even 3D resolution, which has the word resolution in it, do not get applied when you apply the screen resolution. Only things such as the full screen modes, the windowed mode, and our display resolution itself are going to apply, as you can see here. I'm not going to run a full screen example because that just screws up everything during recording. But I can go to like this really weird resolution here, and you can see it change properly. Now if I was to go back out, so we're in this weird resolution, and I leave, and I come back, you're going to find we're no longer in the weird resolution because even though I applied it, I didn't actually save it. I'm back to my 1440. I'd have to do something like 1280 by 720, apply, then hit accept, which is my save node. And if I was running properly, it would come back and it would save it and it would load it properly. Now there is one weird issue where when you're running in the standalone game mode, it doesn't actually save anything to disk. So keep that in mind if you're debugging and you have an issue. And that brings me to this checkbox. Check for command line override. Basically, when you run the game from the command line, you can do some overrides. You can set the resolution via commands rather than the INI file. Now, one thing you will run into is if you are testing in these modes, the plain editor modes and the standalone game modes, and you have this box checked, which if we were to apply resolution settings, you'll notice it comes unchecked. But if you were to run this checked, while it will run fine in the standalone mode, not this standalone mode, but the actual cooked build mode, during the plain editor versions, you're going to run into issues. So for debugging purposes, you may wish to keep this unchecked or maybe set up like a bool for debugging. It's fine to run it on command on the cooked version or just keep it unchecked if you don't actually want to let the player do that. But if you ever run into issues where applying settings are having problems, make sure that is unchecked if you're testing it in the editor. That is going to wrap up our apply resolution settings node. I know it was a long video for a simple node, but basically I wanted to cover the smaller issues you can run into it. It is like our normal apply settings node, except it only applies resolution settings. That is the set resolution node and the set full screen node. and it does not save after it applies. So remember to do that if you want to save your option.